There comes a moment in every person's life, a moment when the world tells you, this is as far as you go. When failure becomes so familiar that giving up feels like mercy. When voices, both outside and within, whisper the same poisonous truth. You're not strong enough. You're not smart enough. You're not enough. But what if I told you that the greatest lie ever told wasn't spoken by your enemies? It was the one you told yourself. The lie that you could be stopped. This is about becoming unstoppable. The book, The Unstoppable Force, doesn't promise you an easy path. It doesn't hand you a map to success or a shortcut to greatness. Instead, it reveals something far more powerful, that within you exists a force, dormant, waiting, that cannot be defeated by circumstance, crushed by failure, or suffocated by fear. This force isn't given, it's forged in the furnace of adversity, in the silence of doubt, in the moments when every rational part of you screams to quit. That's when the unstoppable emerge. Throughout history, a rare breed of individuals understood this truth. They didn't possess supernatural abilities. They weren't chosen by fate. They simply refused to accept that any external force could define their limitations. Today, we're going to dissect exactly what made them unstoppable and how you can become it too. Chapter 1. The Death of the Breakable Self. You must kill who you think you are. In 1886, a young Serbian immigrant arrived in America with 4 cents in his pocket and a mind full of dreams that defied reality itself. Nikola Tesla. The world told him his ideas were impossible. Edison mocked him. Investors abandoned him. He died alone and broke. And yet, his inventions power the world you live in right now. What made Tesla unstoppable wasn't optimism. It was something darker, something most people refuse to face. He divorced himself from the need to be understood. Most people are prisoners of their own identity. They build a fragile self-image and spend their entire lives defending it. I'm not the type of person who people like me don't. I've always been. These sentences are your chains. An unstoppable force has no fixed identity to protect, no ego fragile enough to shatter. When you stop defending who you think you are, you become free to become who you must be. The breakable self dies, so the unstoppable can be born. Chapter 2. The Sovereignty of Mind. Your mind is either your kingdom or your prison. Marcus Aurelius ruled the greatest empire the world had ever seen. He commanded armies, controlled treasuries, held the power of life and death over millions. And yet, in his private journals, what we now call meditations, he wrote constantly about one battle, the battle for control over his own mind. Here's the uncomfortable truth they don't teach you. External success means nothing if you're enslaved internally. You can have everything and still be controlled by anger, by anxiety, by the opinions of people who don't matter. The Stoics understood that the only true sovereignty is mental sovereignty. An unstoppable force doesn't react. They respond. They don't resist reality. They accept it completely and then bend it through action. When Steve Jobs was fired from Apple, the company he built, he could have become bitter, broken, resentful. Instead, he said, the heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again. He took that exile and created Pixar. Then NXT, then returned to Apple and built an empire that changed human civilization. because he refused to let circumstance control his internal state. Your mind is the only territory you truly own. Defend it like your life depends on it, because it does. Chapter 3. The Alchemy of Failure. Failure isn't the opposite of success, it's the raw material. Most people treat failure like poison. They avoid it, fear it, let it define them. An unstoppable force treats failure like fuel. Thomas Edison's laboratory burned to the ground. Decades of research, gone. He was 67 years old. His response? There's great value in disaster. All our mistakes are burned up. Thank God we can start anew. Listen carefully. You will fail. Repeatedly. Brutally. Publicly. The question isn't whether failure will come. The question is, will you let it teach you or destroy you? Unstoppable forces possess a strange ability. They metabolize pain into wisdom. Every rejection becomes a redirection. Every loss becomes a lesson. Every breakdown becomes a breakthrough. The universe doesn't care about your comfort. It only responds to your persistence. When you stop seeing failure as a verdict and start seeing it as feedback, you become unbreakable. Chapter 4. The Discipline of Isolation. Greatness is forged in solitude. This is the truth no one wants to hear. To become unstoppable, you must be willing to be misunderstood, alone, judged. The crowd moves together. They think together. They settle together. An unstoppable force breaks from the herd, not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. Da Vinci spent years in isolation, dissecting corpses to understand human anatomy, an act considered heresy. Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel alone, lying on his back for 4 years, paint dripping into his eyes. Newton developed calculus during a plague quarantine. Your greatest work will not happen at parties. It won't happen when you're comfortable. It won't happen when everyone approves. It will happen in the quiet hours, the unglamorous mornings, the moments when no one is watching and no one is cheering. That's where the unstoppable are built. The world celebrates results. But results are born in the silence you're willing to endure when everyone else needs noise to feel alive. Chapter 5. The Eternal Flame. Purpose is the only fuel that never runs out. Motivation fades, discipline wavers, willpower depletes. But purpose is eternal. An unstoppable force isn't driven by ego or external validation. They're pulled forward by something larger than themselves. It's not about you. It's never about you. It's about the mission, the vision, the contribution you were born to make. When your reason for moving forward transcends your own comfort, you become impossible to stop, because even when you're tired, the mission isn't. Even when you doubt yourself, the work still matters. Even when the world forgets your name, the impact remains. That is immortality. So what happens when you apply these principles? You transform, not into someone fearless. Fear will always exist, but into someone who moves despite it, not into someone who never fails, but into someone who fails forward. You become the person who walks into a room and changes its energy, the person who faces impossible odds and finds a way, the person who, years from now, people will point to and say, they couldn't be stopped. You stop asking for permission. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. You stop living in the prison of other people's expectations. You become the author of your own life. Not through entitlement, but through earned sovereignty. The world doesn't need more people who play it safe. It doesn't need more people who wait for permission, who shrink to fit, who silence their ambition out of fear. The world needs unstoppable forces. It needs you, not the you that exists today, comfortable in mediocrity, but the you that's been waiting in the shadows, watching, preparing, the you that knows deep in your bones that you were built for more than this. So here's your choice. You can close this video and return to the life you've always known. Safe, predictable, small. Or you can decide, right now, in this moment, that nothing will ever stop you again. Not failure, not fear, not the world's opinion of who you should be. You become unstoppable. The question was never whether you had the power. The question was always whether you'd choose to use it.